Family's supposed to have your back, right? She smirked while I lost everything. That lie cost me my job, my pride, my peace. I'm Lucas, 33. I'm a software developer, or was, until she meddled. Betrayed by family. I swallowed the hurt for too long. Then I realized, silence doesn't fix betrayal. It fuels it. I used to love Sunday dinners. The clink of forks on plates, the smell of roasted chicken, the hum of my brother Mark's bad jokes. Claire, his wife, would lean across the table, her smile wide, passing me the mashed potatoes like we were siblings ourselves. At 33, I'd built a life I was proud of, decent apartment, solid job as a software developer, and a family I thought had my back. Claire always asked about my work, her green eyes sharp with interest. Coding sounds so intense, Lucas, she'd say, voice sweet. I'd shrug, mumble about tight deadlines, and change the topic. Her questions felt like care. They weren't. It started small. A comment here, a raised eyebrow there. You're always at that laptop, Lucas. Don't you ever take a break? She'd say, her tone light but edged. I'd laugh it off, my fingers tapping the table, ignoring the sting. Mark would chuckle, slinging an arm around her, oblivious. I told myself she was just teasing, that family ribbed each other. But the jabs kept coming. You sure you're cut out for those big projects? She asked once, her lips curling like she knew something I didn't. My jaw tightened, but I stayed quiet. Silence was my habit. Keep the peace, don't make waves. Then came the night that cracked everything open. It was late, maybe midnight, after one of those dinners. I'd stayed to help clean up, stacking plates in their kitchen. Mark and Claire thought I'd left. Their voices drifted from the living room, low and sharp. I froze, a wet dish rag in my hand, water dripping onto my shoes. He's in the way, Claire said, her voice cold as steel. If Lucas is out, you're next in line for the lead role. My brother's reply was a mumble, hesitant, but he didn't argue. My chest tightened, breath shallow. The dish rag slipped, hitting the floor with a soft thud. They were talking about my job, my career. Claire was orchestrating something, and Mark was letting her. I stood there, pulse hammering in my ears, the kitchen dim under a flickering bulb. I wanted to storm in, demand answers, but my feet wouldn't move. Betrayal doesn't just cut, it paralyzes. I trusted Claire, shared stories of my work stress, my late nights debugging code. She'd listened, nodded, all while sharpening a knife I didn't see. And Mark, my own brother, who I'd covered for when he flunked college, who I'd lent money to when he was broke. He was complicit. My hands shook as I grabbed my jacket and slipped out the back door, their voices still echoing in my head. Driving home, the city lights blurred through my windshield. I kept replaying her words, each one a jab to the gut. I thought of the times I'd defended Claire when coworkers called her pushy, the times I'd invited them to my place, thinking we were building something real. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. I wasn't just angry, I was humiliated. Family was supposed to be safe. But Claire's plan was already in motion, and I was the target. As I pulled into my driveway, one thought burned clear. I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. But how do you fight family? And what happens when the knife's already in your back? The office felt different that Monday. The hum of keyboards, the clatter of coffee mugs. Everything was the same, but heavier. I'd spent the weekend replaying Claire's words, her cold plan to shove me out of my job. My stomach churned as I logged into my workstation, the screen's glow stinging my tired eyes. I was a software developer, good at my job, maybe too good. I'd led projects, fixed bugs others couldn't, and earned a shot at the lead developer role. But Claire had other plans, and I was about to feel the weight of them. It started with an email from my project manager, Karen. Lucas, we need to talk. Urgent. My pulse spiked. I walked to her office, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, each step louder than the last. Karen's face was tight, her eyes avoiding mine. There was a bug in the last release, she said, voice flat. A bad one. Clients are furious, and it's traced back to your commits. My mouth went dry. I tried to explain. I triple-checked that code, stayed late to test it. But she cut me off. The evidence is clear, Lucas. This is serious. My hands clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. Evidence? I hadn't made a mistake like that in years. Back at my desk, I pulled up the commit logs. My name was all over the faulty code, but the changes weren't mine. Lines I'd never written, timestamps I didn't recognize. My heart pounded as I cross-checked the logs. Someone had used my credentials to push bad code, and I knew who. Claire worked in QA, had access to the system, and knew my habits. She'd set me up, and I'd walked right into it. My screen blurred as sweat beaded on my forehead. I wanted to scream, to march to her cubicle and demand answers, but I just sat there, chest tight, breath shallow. Then came the meeting. End of the day, the whole team gathered in the conference room. Karen announced the lead developer role, and my brother's name hit me like a punch. Mark stood up, grinning, shaking hands, while I sat frozen, my tie suddenly too tight. Claire was there, her eyes flicking to me, a smirk tugging at her lips. She didn't say a word, but that look said everything. Victory, smug and sharp. Mark caught my eye, his smile faltering for a split second, but he said nothing. My brother, my own blood, just let it happen. I was called into HR that evening. Performance issues, they said. We're letting you go. My ears rang as I packed my desk, the office now dark and empty. My hands shook, dropping a photo of me and Mark from last Christmas. It cracked on the floor, glass splintering. I left it there. Driving home, the city lights smeared through my windshield, my knuckles white on the wheel. Claire's smirk, Mark's silence. They burned deeper than the pink slip in my pocket. I wasn't just fired. I was erased. But as I pulled into my driveway, one thought took root. I'd find proof. I'd make them pay. How do you prove a lie when everyone believes it? And what happens when a liar's your family? The first week without a job felt like drowning. My apartment, once a sanctuary, turned claustrophobic, bills piling on the counter, unopened, next to cold coffee mugs. I'd stare at my laptop, job boards open, but my fingers wouldn't move. Claire's setup had gutted me. I wasn't just unemployed, I was unmoored. At 33, I'd prided myself on my coding skills, on being the guy who fixed problems. Now, I was the problem, or so they made everyone believe. My chest ached like I'd been punched, and sleep came in fits, interrupted by her smirk flashing in my mind. Family dinners were the worst. Mark and Claire invited me over, same as always, like nothing had happened. I almost didn't go, but skipping would have raised questions, and I wasn't ready to show my hand. Walking into their house, the smell of garlic and bread hit me, but it didn't feel warm anymore. Claire greeted me with a hug, her perfume sharp, her voice dripping with pity. "Lucas, how are you holding up?" she asked, eyes wide with fake concern. My jaw clenched, so hard my teeth hurt. I muttered, "Fine," and sat down, my hands balled under the table. Mark barely looked at me, just sipped his beer, his new lead developer swagger practically glowing. Every laugh, every clink of their glasses, felt like a blade twisting deeper. I watched them, my stomach nodding. Claire's questions came like clockwork. Any job leads yet? Or, maybe you need a fresh start? Each word was a jab, testing me, daring me to crack. I forced a smile, my lips tight, and changed the subject. "How's the new role, Mark?" I asked once, my voice steady but my pulse hammering. He shrugged, mumbling about big projects, his eyes flicking away. Claire jumped in, all cheery. "He's killing it, Lucas. They love him." My fork froze halfway in my mouth. Love him. The words burned, and I saw it again. Her smirk from that meeting, smug and untouchable. Nights alone were worse. I'd pace my apartment, the hum of the fridge my only company. I'd open my old work laptop, scrolling through code I'd written, projects I'd led. My hands shook as I replayed the day I was fired. Karen's cold voice, Mark's silence. I wanted to call him, demand why he let Claire do this, but I knew he'd dodge or lie. Instead, I started digging. I pulled up old emails, Slack messages, anything I could access from my backed up work files. My eyes burned from the screen's glare, but I kept going. There had to be something, some proof Claire had tampered with my code, some trail to follow. By the third week, my anger wasn't just a feeling, it was a pulse, steady and sharp. I ate less, slept less, but my focus grew. Claire thought she'd buried me. Mark thought he'd won. But every lie leaves a trace, and I was going to find theirs. As I closed my laptop one night, the screen's light fading, I made a promise to myself. I'd play their game, but I'd play it better. How do you expose a liar when they're family? And what happens when you find the proof? The glow of my laptop screen was my only light at 2 a.m., casting shadows across my cluttered apartment. Empty coffee mugs sat on the desk, their bitter dregs matching the taste in my mouth. I hadn't slept properly in weeks, not since Claire's lies cost me my job, but sleep could wait. I was hunting for proof that she'd framed me, that she'd twisted my code to hand my brother, Mark, the lead developer role. My fingers trembled as I opened another folder of backed up work files, my pulse a steady drum in my ears. Every click felt like a step toward reclaiming what they'd stolen. I started with the commit logs from the project that got me fired. The bug they'd pinned on me. It was no accident. I'd known at the moment Karen showed me the evidence. My name was on those commits, but the code wasn't mine. Line by line, I scoured the repository, my eyes stinging from the strain. Then I found it. A commit time-stamped 11:47 p.m., when I'd been home, not even logged into the system. The code was sloppy, rushed, nothing like my work. My breath caught, a cold sweat prickling my neck. Claire had access to the QA system, my credentials, everything. She'd done this. I cross-checked emails next, digging through months of threads. My hand shook as I found one from Claire to Karen, sent a week before my firing. Concerned about Lucas's recent performance. It read, all professional, all fake. Attached was a doctored report, highlighting my errors. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. She'd been building a case against me, drip by drip, while smiling at me over family dinners. I leaned back, my chair creaking, and rubbed my eyes. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was calculated, surgical. I kept digging, piecing together a trail. Another email, this one to Mark, CC to a coworker in QA. Mark's ready for more responsibility, it said, with a subtle nudge about my struggles. My brother's reply was short. Thanks, babe. Let's make it happen. My stomach twisted. Mark hadn't just stood by. He'd sign off on it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to confront him, but I stopped. Confronting them now would tip my hand. I needed more, needed to be airtight. By dawn, I'd found enough. Altered logs, backdated reports, even a chat log where Claire bragged to a coworker about cleaning up the team. My heart raced, not with fear, but with clarity. Every late night, every skipped meal, every moment I'd spent unraveling their lies, it was worth it. I saved everything, backing it up twice, my hand steady now. The proof was mine, but I wasn't done. I closed my laptop, the room dark except for a sliver of morning light. Claire thought she'd buried me, but I was digging my way out. And when I surfaced, she'd see what happens when you underestimate someone like me. Proof was one thing, but how do you turn it into justice? And what if the cost is your family? The weight of the proof sat heavy on my hard drive, a digital arsenal of Claire's lies, doctored code, forged emails, her smug chats. I'd spent weeks digging, my eyes bloodshot from late nights, my apartment a mess of takeout boxes and scribbled notes. But proof alone wasn't enough. I needed a stage, a moment to turn her betrayal back on her. My hand steadied as I typed a message to Sarah, a former teammate who'd left the company months ago. Claire had always dismissed her as quiet, but I knew better. Sarah was sharp, meticulous, and owed me a favor from a project I'd saved her on. I met Sarah at a diner, the kind with sticky tables and coffee that burned your tongue. My leg bounced under the table as I explained everything. Claire's setup, Mark's complicity, the evidence I'd gathered. Sarah's eyes narrowed, her fingers tapping her mug. Claire always rubbed me wrong, she said, voice low. I'll help you. My chest loosened, just a fraction. Sarah still had contacts in the company, people who trusted her. She suggested the annual review meeting, executives, team leads, everyone would be there. It was perfect. My pulse quickened, a mix of fear and thrill. This was my shot. We spent days planning. Sarah got me access to the meeting's virtual platform. She knew someone in IT who could slip me in as a guest. I rehearsed my presentation, my voice steadying with each run-through. I'd show the altered commit logs, the emails, the chat logs. Undeniable proof Claire had framed me. My hand shook as I mocked up slides, each one a nail for her coffin. But doubt crept in, cold and heavy. What if they didn't believe me? What if Mark spun it? Made me look desperate. I pushed the thoughts down, my jaw tight. I'd been silent too long. I wouldn't choke now. Sarah and I met again, this time in her place, laptops open, coffee going cold. She helped me refine the evidence, cutting anything that wasn't airtight. "You've got one shot, Lucas," she said, her voice firm. "Make it count." I nodded, my throat dry. We timed the presentation to hit just after Mark's performance review. Let him bask in his stolen glory before I ripped it away. My fingers clenched my phone, imagining Claire's face when the truth hit. That smirk would vanish, and I'd be the one standing tall. The night before the review, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, the hum of the fridge my only company. My heart raced, not just with nerves but with something else, power. I wasn't the guy who'd packed his desk in shame anymore. I was the guy with the truth, and I was coming for them. I checked my slides one last time, my reflection ghostly in the screen. Claire thought she'd broken me. Mark thought he'd won. Tomorrow, they'd learn how wrong they were. Could I really pull this off? Or would exposing them cost me more than I'd already lost? The virtual meeting room was a grid of faces on my screen, executives and team leads staring back through their webcams. My palms were slick with sweat, but my voice was steady as I logged in, a guest link courtesy of Sarah's IT contact. The annual review had started, and Mark was up, basking in his lead developer role. His voice droned through my speakers, confident, polished, talking up his leadership on the project I'd been scapegoated for. My jaw tightened, teeth grinding. Claire sat beside him in their home office, her smile tight, professional. I waited, my slides ready, my heart hammering like a war drum. The moderator called for questions. I unmuted, my throat dry, but my resolve ironclad. "I have something to share," I said, my voice cutting through the digital hum. Heads turned, virtual and real. Karen, my old project manager, frowned, but I didn't pause. I shared my screen, the first slide showing a commit log with Claire's fingerprints all over it. "This bug was pinned on me," I said, clicking to the time-stamped evidence. But I wasn't logged in. Claire was. Her face froze, eyes wide, the smirk gone. Whispers rippled through the call, a low buzz of shock. I kept going, slide after slide. The doctored report she'd sent Karen, claiming my errors. The email to Mark, pushing him for the role while burying me. The chat log where she bragged about cleaning up the team. My voice stayed calm, but my pulse roared in my ears. "Claire used my credentials to push bad code," I said, clicking to the final slide. A screenshot of her QA access logs, undeniable. Mark's face was ashen, his mouth half open, no words coming out. Claire's hands gripped the desk, knuckles white. This was deliberate. I finished leaning back, my chest tight, but my eyes locked on the screen. The silence was deafening, broken only by the moderator clearing his throat. "Lucas, these are serious claims," he said, voice shaky. Karen's frown deepened, but she nodded for me to send the files. I did, my fingers steady now, the weight of months lifting with each click. Whispers grew louder, co-workers messaging privately, executives scribbling notes. Claire tried to speak, her voice high, defensive. "This is ridiculous. He's just bitter," but the moderator cut her off. "We'll review this." Immediately. Mark just stared at the camera, his swagger gone, replaced by something hollow. I muted myself, my breath shallow, adrenaline coursing through me. The room, virtual or not, felt alive, charged with the collapse of their lies. Claire's eyes darted to Mark, then back to the screen, her composure cracking. I'd done it. I'd laid their betrayal bare, and there was no hiding now. But as the meeting ended, a cold thought hit me. I'd burned a bridge with my own brother. The truth was out, but the fallout was just beginning. Their lies were exposed, but at what cost? And what happens when the truth cuts deeper than the betrayal? The days after the annual review were a blur of fallout. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I ignored it, my hands still shaking from the adrenaline of exposing Claire. The company launched an investigation, and the truth I'd laid bare didn't just sting, it burned. Claire's QA credentials were revoked within hours, her name whispered in the office with disgust. My old co-worker Sarah texted me. They're auditing everything she touched. I read it in my apartment, the same cluttered space where I'd pieced together her lies, and felt a grim satisfaction. My chest loosened, but my heart still raced, caught between relief and rage. Mark lost the lead developer role by the end of the week. Karen called me herself, Her voice clipped, but apologetic. We're reviewing your termination, Lucas. You were right. They offered me a chance to come back, but I declined. I'd already landed a better gig at a rival firm, one that valued my work without Claire's shadow. Still, hearing Mark's demotion hit hard. Not because I pitied him, but because it confirmed he'd been complicit. My brother, who I'd once bailed out, who I'd laughed with over beers, had let her bury me. My jaw tightened at the thought, my fingers gripping my coffee mug until it burned. Claire and Mark's marriage started to crack, or so I heard. Family dinners stopped, but my mom filled me in, her voice heavy over the phone. They're fighting nonstop, she said. Claire's blaming Mark for not stopping you. I pictured Claire's smug smirk replaced by panic, her green eyes darting as she scrambled to save face. Mark called me once, his voice low, broken. Lucas, can we talk? I didn't know she'd go that far. My throat burned, but I let the call go to voicemail. His words were too late, too weak. I'd spent months swallowing their betrayal. I wasn't swallowing his excuses. The company's investigation dug up more. Claire had fudged other reports, cutting corners to look good. Her reputation, once polished, was shredded. Co-workers who'd once kissed up to her now avoided her. Mark's career took a hit too. Demoted to a junior role, his confidence gone. I saw them once at a grocery store, their cart half empty, their faces drawn. Claire's eyes met mine, and she froze, her hands tightening on the cart. I didn't smirk or gloat. I just walked past, my shoulders square, my new job's ID badge clipped to my jacket. Justice felt like a cold wind, sharp, satisfying but fleeting. I'd won, but the scars of their betrayal didn't fade. My new job was better, my life rebuilding, but the trust I'd lost in family lingered like a bruise. Claire's frantic texts, begging to explain, went unanswered. Mark's voicemails piled up, each one weaker than the last. I didn't need their apologies. I needed to move forward, to be the man who didn't let betrayal define him. I got injustice, but could I ever rebuild what they broke? Or was the cost of winning too high? 6 months after the review, my life looked different. My new job at a rival tech firm was a step up, better pay, better projects, a team that respected my code. My apartment was no longer a cave of unopened bills and cold coffee. I'd cleaned it out, let light back in. But as I sat at my new desk, fingers flying across the keyboard, the weight of what happened never fully left. Claire and Mark's betrayal had carved something permanent into me. Like a crack in a foundation you only notice in certain light. I was standing taller, but I wasn't the same Lucas. Claire's fall was complete. The company's investigation didn't just strip her of her QA role, it blacklisted her. Whispers spread through industry circles. Her name was poisoned now. I heard she'd taken a low-level admin job somewhere, her confidence replaced by a tight-lipped grimace. Mark was still at the company, but demoted, stuck debugging code under someone else's lead. Their marriage, Mom told me, was hanging by a thread. Arguments loud enough to wake neighbors. Claire's accusations matched by Mark's sullen silence. I didn't feel joy hearing it, just a cold nod of acknowledgement. They'd built their castle on my back, and now it was rubble. I saw them once, at a family barbecue I couldn't avoid. Claire's eyes darted away when I arrived, her hands fidgeting with a paper plate. Mark tried to approach, his voice low. Lucas, I'm sorry, man. I cut him off with a look, my jaw tight. You did, I said, my voice flat, final. He shrank back, his beer bottle sweating in his hand. I didn't stay long, just enough to hug Mom, eat a burger, and leave. The air felt lighter as I drove away, their shadows smaller in my rearview. Looking back, I see the cost of silence. I'd spent years swallowing slights, keeping peace, thinking that's what family did. But betrayal doesn't reward loyalty, it feeds on it. Exposing Claire wasn't just about justice, it was about breaking free. My hands don't shake anymore when I think of her smirk or Mark's silence. I've got scars, sure, but they're proof I survived. I built a new life, one where trust is earned, not given. My phone still buzzes sometimes, Claire's texts, Mark's voicemails, all unanswered. They're scrambling to rebuild what they broke, but I'm not part of their story anymore. I'm Lucas, 33, a software developer who knows his worth. I don't gloat over their downfall. I don't need to. I'm too busy coding, living, moving forward. But I'll never forget the lesson. Silence is a blade that cuts both ways. And I'm done bleeding. I've moved on. But can you ever truly escape family? Or do some wounds stay open forever?